What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Phone Booth Fighting Corona Quarantine Chronicles Evening Edition. A lot of times we do these during the day, but we're doing one in under the dark of night here in Las Vegas. I'm Richard Hunter. You see the more recognizable half of the duo. That's Frank Mir over there out in his backyard. Just got done doing a workout, right, Frank? You're not letting Corona quarantine get you out of shape.
No, luckily, I got guys I can call on to go work out. I've been, it's funny, actually, I'll probably post a picture tomorrow because we meant to do it today because I got Nick Best, who, if anybody knows, he's competed the world's strongest man.
Big.
I've either well, right now I had an A5 that he's kind of snugly fitting in. We got to order him an A6. So while we're waiting, we just kind of make do. But he's stretching it out. It's a decent gi. And then so I keep making a joke right now that this is either I'm a genius for creating one of the greatest training partners I could probably ever have, because he's so strong and quick and heavy, or I'm signing my death warrant here.
Yeah, the folks in the Naga heavyweight division, novice, are probably not going to be real happy with you next time.
Well, it's funny because we started out a couple of weeks ago just training MMA stuff. So, we started out like, how to throw a jab. We worked on throwing a low kick, grab a single, body locks, different trips, work from the clinch, just even 50-50 swimming, you know what I mean? All the basics that I work with everybody. And then we started, I was thinking, hey, if you ever want to compete, obviously, we're probably not going to have you fight, Nick's still, he's 51. I mean, he could if he wanted to, but I mean, but I'm like, and he's very competitive and he wants to do things. I'm all, it's really realistic. It's a much more realistic, or, definitely, it was like, hey, why don't we compete with a gi? You showing up, super heavyweight and doing the opens. Like, so, today we were just working the scissor choke inside the guard. Yeah.
You'll be the guy standing on the Naga podium with the samurai sword that they give you for winning in one hand and just some dude's arm that he's just sort of holding up,
I mean, could you imagine a guy that can? The other day we were at his house on last Saturday that we worked out. He pulled in a deadlift, and he I don't know if he's posted it yet, but I watched him. Maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag. He's done this before. I think it's on the internet. So where he's pulled 600 pounds for 17 reps. I mean, I've been there and watched him one time. I think it was at 810 or 820. I watched him pull for 6 reps. Jesus, that's so much power in your hips that once he learns the angles and how to lock it up and what to set up and what traps to set to lure somebody into an armbar, you're not going to stack him. You know what I mean? Like, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, you might just try to cross your hands like, okay, I'm going to fight out of this. It's like, no, you're not. You got to make sure that if he looks at your arm, you basically hide that thing,
Yeah, very true. Very true. If you don't know what you have stumbled into the middle of here, by the way, welcome back, California Love. He was on with us yesterday as well. A few more people jumping in the chat right now. If you guys have questions for Frank Mir or myself or both of us, or just MMA talk in general, throw them in. We'll be happy to talk about them. We'll get to more questions than we did yesterday because we were kind of working out the technical aspects of going live. In fact, to anyone who was heard us say we were going to do this at 5 o'clock Pacific time today, that was my fault, not Frank's. I upgraded the internet connection, Frank. I went with the Gigablast Mac package, fast that you can do all that to get our internet stream good and going. And I was going to ask you about that just because I had this thought, like, I know you probably have that package already. You got 3 kids and they're all on devices and all that kind of stuff. What do you try to save money on? Because I save money on the internet. That was a deal where I was like, well, we're rolling on Netflix one. It took this to be okay. I got to spend another $40 on the internet because everybody's at home streaming, and hey, we're doing this podcast and we need videos. Just like the most taxing thing you can do on a connection. I want to make sure we got a smooth connection for everybody. So what is that thing?
Well, basically I try not to cinch up, what's the word I'm looking for, cut corners on things that we use. It doesn't make sense to me, but I just try to pay attention to stuff that we're not using. For example, for a while there, I mean, it was probably a good year. We're paying and for cable. And I'm like, when's the last time any of the kids have sat in front of the television and watched a cable channel?
Yeah.
They don't. Between Hulu and Netflix and now with, the ESPN Plus and then Disney, we don't ever watch regular TV. And now I got a Fire Stick up in my room that I watch everything on. And so we cut that out. Little things like, the last time, we even kept a landline for the longest time because of the fax machine. Well, like if you got to send a fax. And then it was probably about 6 months ago, I told Jen, I don't fax anybody. Have you faxed anybody? And we're kind of like, she's like, no. I'm like, everything's like, when we scan and we email people, it's all over the internet. It's all through the Wi-Fi. I've yet to actually ring up and fax anybody that I can think of in the last 3 or 4 years. It just doesn't. So I look for things like that, like things that are just dead weight. It's like, hey, are you using this? Are we using that? It's like, well, if we're not using it, utilizing it, then let's cut the fat. If it's something we take advantage of and people use, I'm not going to cut corners there. Look, when the air's on, I'm not crazy. When it's summertime, I don't have my dial at 72. It's at 68. It's the way I look at it. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor and have a comfortable life at home when I'm in bed. But when it comes to things that are, if we're not watching HBO and Stars and all those things, it's like, well, why pay for it?
Yep. No, hey, everybody feels super smart the day they cut that cord and go with the apps and things like that. Like we've been doing that for a long time. It's just, to me, it's always a never-ending cat and mouse game because it's also one of those things. Like, you ever had this experience with your cell phone provider when you're a plan and you call them up because maybe you're getting a new phone or something like that, and they go, oh, we can put you on the 3 times as big plan for an extra $5.28. And you're like, well, that deal didn't exist the last time I talked to you. It's like a car lot. It's like things are just always changing, and you gotta, you know what? It's like having a girlfriend you can't trust. You're just checking up on them all the time. Hey, how's this person screwing me over? Let me, I know what they said last time I signed up for the plan, but that's been a few weeks. Let me give them a call.
Yeah, and Jen's better about that, paying attention than I. It's been about a year now. We switched over our cell phone plan. For the longest time, our plan, and geez, man, because I had all the international plans and unlimited data, and we were with Verizon, and I swear to God, I was, if we didn't, even though it was unlimited data, like there was a certain amount, like there was only so many gigabytes, still you could go over, and then you had to pay, and damn, I swear it was like no less than $750 a month I was spending on cell phones.
Yeah, and
then we switched over to T-Mobile, and everybody goes, "Oh, the service is going to suck." I have now the unlimited data. I use. There's times where I'll be places, and if I'm somewhere where the Wi-Fi, I'll run off data, and I'm watching TV and on my travels. So that was another a good one. But that's her doing much more job of paying attention and talking to people. And where with me, I tend not to see that as much. I try to, but if another deals come along, she's good at switching to the better deal. Where I'm looking more or less at, okay, wait a minute. If we're not driving this vehicle that much, why do we have it in the garage,
Yeah. Well, that is the Susie Ormond consumer savings portion of the stream there, courtesy of Frank Mir. We're going to get some questions here in the chat. By the way, if you're wondering why we're doing this, besides the fact that we just like to talk to all of our podcast listeners out there, Frank and I have been doing this Phone Booth Fighting podcast for going on 5 years. We're going to be celebrating a 5th anniversary in September. We do a free weekly episode, but here recently we have cranked up the Patreon page. And I'll put the link up right there. It's patreon.com/phone booth fighting. Now, what we do over there is, in addition to the free weekly show that we put out to the masses, if you join up over there, and there's different levels that you can support at, then we make extra episodes every week available, along with some fun perks like free T-shirts for people that qualify for them. And look at this, Frank. Do you see what I'm holding up here to the camera? The stickers arrived today. The commemorative Phone Booth Fighting Frank Mir, Richard Hunter Stay Home Corona Quarantine sticker. Now, we just ordered a limited batch of these, but anybody who joins up on our Patreon page at any level, we're going to mail them one of these stickers because that's something that we can navigate fairly easily with the mailbox and not having to do the post office. But we're only going to print those. We're only going to have these for while we're all quarantined inside our homes. So you get one of these. It's a membership card, Frank. It's like getting a tattoo when we're all joining the same fraternity. Everybody will remember. You see one of these stickers, and you're going to be like, I know what you were during Corona quarantine. You were listening to Phone Booth Fighting, right?
Absolutely. I like it. It's a good picture.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's got a good story behind it, too. All right, so let's get to a couple of questions for you guys. David Powers checking in. Hey, good to see you, man. Maria wants to know, Frank, which retired UFC fighters should be in the UFC Hall of Fame? David got that conversation kicked off. He threw out the name Jens Pulver.
Oh, yeah. Jens isn't in the Hall of Fame?
I don't think he's in there yet. I don't believe so.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's definitely somebody who should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. You know, he's a guy who, you want to talk about BJ Penn, I think, gets a lot of the credit for pioneering lighter weight classes, but Jens Pulver, really, I mean, he was WEC before there was WEC kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like he was like an earlier version of Joe Benavidez. I remember when people would always be like, man, if only there was a flyweight class for Joe Benavidez. He's always having to fight bigger than he really is. Jens, was a guy who, if he was around now, I mean, you think about he could really, he would have probably really excelled even further than there had been more suitable, weight classifications for him.
Yeah, he was very well-rounded, great grappler, obviously, phenomenal kickboxer, great hands, phenomenal power. I remember watching, at home when he fought the Vegas guy, John Lewis, and just crushing punches, took him out quickly. And then, his fights with BJ Penn, there were wars. I think the first one fought to a draw, and the second one, I think BJ fought finally to a decision victory. I don't remember the second one, how it ended. But I just remember Jens. I mean, that is somebody, and, he went overseas, fought in Pride, that guy, he had a ton of fights. He was, I think, our first lightweight champion, if I remember correctly.
You're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, wow, I mean, that's definitely somebody that I don't understand why it's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Yeah. Got to happen pretty soon, I'm sure. All right, let's see here. Somebody wants to know, MMA Random wants to know, Frank, if there's any updates on contract negotiations for commentating opportunities.
No, not yet. I think once shows start going, I'll be a little bit more persistent on it. But I mean, right now, I'm trying to call people up or, obviously I was, through social media, I've put the word out that I'm available. And then once I think, I think everybody right now, because of the coronavirus, that's main priority. Once people start knowing when they're going to have shows again and what in what capacity, are they going to be live shows? They can be done in a studio, or in a small arena, just, with just a skeleton crew, with no fans. There's a lot, to still navigate right now. So, there's a lot of dominoes in front of mine.
By the way, guys, if you're checking this out, we'd love to have you like and subscribe to our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. This channel is probably the fastest growing arm of the podcast. So a lot of people obviously like the video stream. So please take a second and hit that like and subscribe buttons right down there below you. Did you see, Frank, that Dana White was doing a Reddit AMA, and he was asked about whether or not he thought the Khabib Nurmagomedov Tony Ferguson fight would happen at all in 2020, and he said it's highly doubtful. couple of factors here. One, Ramadan's about to crank up, I think, and that shuts Khabib down for about a month. Khabib is saying that he's hoping to fight sometime in September. But what's interesting about this, even though Tony Ferguson is going to fight Justin Gaethje here in a week or two, this tells me this fight has been booked and canceled 5 separate times. Dana didn't say this, but if I'm kind of reading between the lines, I'm thinking even though he's got a place to do these fights in Jacksonville for the next couple of weeks, and even though he's going to Night Island and all that, this fight is such a delicate Fabergé egg of a fight. He's got to be thinking, I really don't want to try to put this thing on until everything is as much back to normal as it can possibly be. Even under normal circumstances, this thing is always got the potential to be snake bit reason.
Yeah, I mean, do you blame the guy? I mean, it's been, I think, with 5. This was the 5th time, right, with the coronavirus that it got canceled.
Yep.
I mean, and the other 4 times were under normal circumstances. So, I mean, it does seem like it's just cursed. I think at this point he's going to be very pessimistic, as far as pulling this one through and not really probably try to line it up again until, it's really, all the other factors that could go wrong are taken care of now, because there is factors that have occurred that are just between the 2 guys individually that keep happening without outside influence. So definitely with the outside influence of what society is like now. And like you and I have kept talking, I don't know what life's going to be like once we get back and up and running. I don't think it's going to be the same. I just don't. I think that there's, I mean, all the plexiglass at the supermarket, are they going to take it down? I mean, restaurant capacity, I don't know. I think the certain level of the social distancing, just like how, traveling, in the airports changed after 9/11. I think that the coronavirus is going to change certain aspects of our life moving forward. And, and I'm like anybody else, I don't know what it's going to be, but I think it would be, it's safe to bet that things are going to change, and what those are going to be, I mean, time will tell.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think what's going to happen is that people are going to, I think, at least as they start to come back, people are going to be more selective about what they go out and do. So, for example, I'll tell you the 2 things that are high on my list to do as soon as it's safe is Disneyland. And I don't know how long we're going to be waiting for that one, but of course, as soon as it's safe, looking forward to going back to Disneyland. Also, I love this music artist, Jason Isbell, and I've got tickets for his couple of his summer tour stops. I'm sure those are going to be rescheduled for July, but, whenever, or from July, they're booked, but, whenever they do get rescheduled for, that's something I very much want to do. I've had these tickets for a long time, all that kind of stuff. What it will change, I think, is like those random nights that you'll just go out. Like, hey, it's a Tuesday night. There's not much going on. There's some band playing I've heard a little bit about. Maybe we go come out, see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like those kind of more spur of the moment, like the quantity over quality. This isn't something you've been looking forward to for a long time. This is just, hey, we'll go down the street, check that out. I'll bet for a lot of people, those kinds of spontaneous type things are going to be met with a lot more trepidation.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, every time I'll go with Jen to the supermarket to help her out, obviously, with getting groceries, and we'll go in and the supermarkets are packed still, Walmart, Costco. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm like, everybody's terrified, but all of a sudden everybody can meet up at Costco, and how much foot traffic is going through here, how many different people are going through an area, and being exposed to each other. And I'm like, well, that's because Costco and all these, industries have really great representatives over in DC that make sure that they're not going to be socially distancing. So that's when I was like, well, probably the same for a lot of the sports team. I don't think, I think it'll be left up to the individual but I don't know if they're going to have the power to pass any kind of laws that are going to stop, arenas. If you go down to go see the Cowboys play, are they really going to make it to where you can only have every other seat, and a space between people? Those kind of people, they pay people's bills. They too much campaign contributions going on. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. The nitpicking over, well, if I'm essential, or not even essential. Once we get outside of essential, I think the nitpicking over what classification you in, am I a phase 3 business or am I a phase 4 or 5 business? That is going to be much more nuanced. And I think there's going to be a lot more argument over that. Frank,
Well, I think what's going
Maria.
to happen is people that look, everything I keep reading, everybody that, if you look at the percentages, it's people that have predisposed, issues with it. The population of people that are you and I that are extremely healthy, that are coming down with, are typically even asymptomatic. So we're able to carry the virus, maybe transfer the virus, but we're not the ones in danger. Everybody else is pre-existing condition. They have something wrong with them that, or they're, that made them vulnerable to it. I think those people are going to have to really just be sequestered and live a life of really paying attention to what's going on until the rest of us are able to just kind of pick up life and just go forward and realize that, I think that a lot more people have this virus than we realize. And it's maybe that's going to lower the numbers of what people really feel the impact of it really was.
Maria's asking an interesting question in the chat, Frank. It's almost like she's read our mind. She says, will you fight a live reaction stream for UFC 249? This is something that Frank and I have actually talked about because with everything what it is, we did have the idea of, hey, when the fight card's happening, what if you and I watch it and we do a stream just like this one? Everybody watches it along. I mean, obviously for legal reasons, we can't broadcast it here on the YouTube channel, but we'll get it and everybody else can get it and we can just talk about it live as it happens. I think that's a pretty good idea. That'd be a great idea to do with our supporters over on our Patreon page, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I was even thinking about maybe even Facebook Live. I did some stuff earlier today on that. I've been trying to do that at least once a week. Get on there and talk to fans and answer questions. And so, I mean, yeah, we definitely have opportunities to go out there. And I guess I was just, typically you and I are very busy.
Yeah, right.
All the time when there's fights on. I don't remember the last time I've watched a UFC fight live on TV. I'm usually out of town doing something over the weekend, whether it's a seminar, calling fights in other shows, whatever the case may be. But
I'm usually at the fight. I'm usually at the fight.
Yeah. You're usually you're media, so you're usually covering the fight. So this would be one of those rare occasions that both of us will be available and able to do it. So yeah, in some form we're going to be doing it. So we'll figure it out. The details as it gets closer.
Stay tuned, Maria. We'll share those with you. Jim wants to know, this was a question you kind of got yesterday, Frank, but Jim probably wasn't. Any interest in any talks in the past or present to transition to wrestling as a one-off or maybe more? A lot of people don't know you actually did a couple of pro wrestling shows within the last few years, and you like those. So what about that, doing more of that?
Yeah, very much so. I just that right now the gym that I was able to train at, I don't have access to, and because of wrestling being what it is, there's a lot that I can do with Austin at a regular gym, with mats, but you need that ring. That's a very important tool to a professional wrestling, is the ring itself. The movement, the way you run, the ropes, the distance. There's so much that being in there is priceless. So once I can get back to training again in that field, then I'll talk about going and doing more. But, I've kind of right now done as much as I can with my level of knowledge. I never want to be that guy that just sandbags and goes into other aspects of life and just relies upon the name I've created in martial arts. So like, hey, look, I'm going to do a pro wrestling match and not really know what the hell I'm doing. I think that's disrespectful towards the pro wrestlers. And it's always pissed me off when guys have done that with MMA, jump over because they have a huge name and then everybody clamors over it and then they have a really poor showing. I'm like, hey, good for you for taking advantage. You can make some money, but I really want you to have focused and train and have a good showing of yourself. Approach it like you're a white belt all over again.
Yep. You definitely have to approach it that way. Somebody wants to know thoughts on Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. How do you think that changes from what should have been Tony versus Khabib? I mean, Justin's definitely a different opponent there.
Matt, I mean, Justin Gaethje is a super exciting guy to watch fight. I really do enjoy watching. He's very aggressive, very much of a warrior. And it's crazy. The guy actually is a really good wrestler. But I thought when I first saw him, his first 10 fights, I think I was a pure kickboxer. Come to find out, he's actually got a good shot. He just doesn't utilize it. I think that I just think that Ferguson has a few more tools. I think with his reach on his feet, he's already faced guys that are good kickboxers like Cowboy, who, kind of, if you look at the fight with Cowboy kind of took him to school, Ferguson, on striking and moving around. But Ferguson is just so resilient and such an athlete and so powerful that he willed himself through it and was able to cause more damage with his length and with his power of his punches. And, and Gaethje does get caught with shots right down the middle when he's throwing kicks and stuff. So the fact that he makes for exciting fights, he's going to get hit by Ferguson, and I think that eventually the fight will, when it does hit the ground, I think obviously Tony has an advantage there, and so, I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it'll be exciting, and I think Gaethje might even win the first round, but I think that after that, Tony will take over and be, and hopefully we'll see the Khabib fight sometime this next year.
Yeah, you know what? You just brought up two key elements, I think, in this fight. One is resiliency, and that's the case with both of these guys. I mean, that's going to be very much a matchup, one resiliency against the other. However, Justin Gaethje does eat a lot of shots. I mean, that's just a statistical fact. And if you're telling me that both these guys are bringing in resilient hearts, then I'm going to start looking at who takes the most damage in a typical fight. And that's probably going to be advantage Ferguson, although he'll absorb some damage too. So that's not necessarily a foregone conclusion either. We'll talk more about that fight as it gets closer, but there's a couple of thoughts for you. All right, Frank. Stephen A. Smith is back. Stephen A. Smith, who will not let the ghost of his comments following the very brief Conor McGregor Cowboy Cerrone fight go. If you recall, the night of the fight, Smith was on the broadcast team because he's the ESPN big gun. Frank went away there for a second. Got him back. There we go. You, Frank? Okay, Frank, I cannot hear you now. Can you, I see you, and I know you can hear me because you're reacting to what I'm saying, but I can't hear you. Do you want to drop out of the broadcast for just a second, come back in? Frank's repeating there now. Checking his settings. Hey, it's just me there for a minute. All right, Frank Mir will be back. I'll take a second to let everybody know to follow us on social media if you're not doing that. Or Phone Booth Fighting on Instagram and Facebook as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Phone Booth Fight. You can find us under our names as well. I'm at Richard Hunter on Twitter and Instagram. Frank is at the Frank Mir. I see Frank coming back into the broadcast here, but he stand by momentarily. Add him back in here. Oh, I hear you now. Y'all good?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool.
We're all good. Yeah, that was weird. Okay, no problem. So what I was saying is Stephen A. Frank, Donald Cerrone here in just the last couple of days took the for his performance against Conor McGregor. I guess he was asked about it. He had this quote. He said, "Showed up. Cowboy wasn't there. Wrong guy showed up. I couldn't get going, couldn't get excited, couldn't get fired up. I didn't want to be there." Now, pretty candid comments from Cowboy Cerrone. I've heard Cowboy talk in the past about certain fights for whatever reason, certain nights he just felt like he didn't show. Well, Stephen A. Smith has taken that as validation. He is on Twitter letting all of his critics know he's curious to all of the folks who I profoundly respect. Am I off my rocker now? When you've covered sports intimately as a reporter for a quarter century, you see things sometimes I respect the hell out of Donald Cerrone, but he just wasn't there that night. What do you think, Frank? Does that let Stephen A. Smith hook?
What's my initial reaction?
While you're thinking, do you want me to give you mine?
Yeah, go ahead. You go first, because I got a couple of different things.
I think it helps. I think it helps mitigate his position, right? It always helps when the target of your criticism goes in one way or another. Basically, you're right to some degree. I think the problem for Stephen A. Smith, it's like you talked about a minute ago in pro wrestling. Like if you go into pro wrestling, you want to do it right. You don't want to just come in and act like you know everything. You want to ingratiate yourself. I thought that the problem with that, especially for somebody like me who didn't know anything about this Stephen A. Smith. Now, from what everybody's told, this is his thing. He comes on and just, is very over the top and flamboyant and controversial and, really turns everything up to 10 as often as he can. I think that's what the problem was. Had he come on and said, from what I've researched, Cowboy in the past has made comments about certain nights he just felt off. I wonder if that's the case tonight. Seemed like something could have been off. If he's talking like that, I don't think he's getting the criticism. I think it was that he came out the guns blast, like he was disgusted. He would, in fact, if he didn't say disgusted, he used a term very similar to it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, having known that Cowboy has talked that way before, I would have felt comfortable saying that night in the moment, hey, I wonder, be interesting to hear what Cowboy has to say, because I know he's just, felt like he couldn't get out of the starting blocks before. Maybe it was one of those nights. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is coming out when you're, I'm disgusted, I'm incensed, that was pathetic. I'm putting a few in Stephen A. Smith's mouth, but as far as the adjectives and the approach he was taking, that's how it felt. And I think that is still too far, because I know enough about what it takes to get in there, and you certainly do, that nobody's in there by accident. Nobody's in there because they don't belong. It's just sometimes some guys have nights that are actually that bad, but that's what can happen in a fight.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's why I'm reviewing the fight in my head from what I remember. And obviously that's probably not the best thing to do. We could probably be more accurate if we were in front of a monitor and rewatch the fight. But
yeah,
Stephen A. Smith, his comments, the way I took them was that basically Cerrone folded his cards the whole time. And I think Cerrone is trying to say in that statement that, hey, I didn't show up. It wasn't, myself, I wasn't focused on. But the way Stephen A. Smith made it sound is that Cerrone never even tried to fight. But I can look back at the fight, and I'll point to you at times that as Conor was putting it on Cerrone was trying to fight back. The first exchange after he got his nose broken with the shoulder, you see Cerrone backpedal and throw a monstrous roundhouse to try to get Conor off of him, to earn his respect. He was trying to fight back. There wasn't like he broke mentally right off the bat. He might not have been ready to go like his confession right there that hey, I was off. But when he got put in that fight, he tried to respond. And I think that the comments that Stephen A. Smith took that away from of Cowboy. It took it away that there was the warrior in him that did try to respond and step up to the plate. It just that as he stepped up to the plate, he got ran over by Conor, who is a phenomenal fighter and a very good starter. And so even though there is some to what helps out Stephen A. Smith, it's still not exactly accurate of what happened that night. And because he was so, ecstatic about his statements about it, and so emotional, it makes it to where, and again, it wasn't accurate. When he was sitting there going, he didn't even show up at all. It's like, well, I can go back and we can point at fights, moments in the fight that Cowboy was fighting back. He tried. It's just that once Conor busted his nose with that first shoulder shot, Conor didn't let up. He just, he had his head down, and he kept his head down until eventually, 40 seconds into the fight, he won. But it wasn't like, I've seen there's opponents of Tyson that, that didn't want to be there. And the minute they took one shot, we're looking for, take a knee, I'm out of here. And that was almost kind of what Stephen A. Smith was describing, is how I took it. And I think that's what a lot of fans took it, and that's why they took offense to it. That almost Cowboy just showed up to get a paycheck and go home. And that's definitely not what I saw. Cowboy might have been overtrained and not in the, and not peaked out properly. But that's a far cry from a guy who he's showing up just to collect a paycheck and go home.
Yeah, I think the problem for Stephen A. Smith is the level of his comments still do not match what Donald Cerrone is saying.
I agree 100%.
Helps a little bit, but yeah, we're still not there, Stephen A. Smith. Here's a question for both of us, Frank. Somebody notices you're wearing your "It's My Cheat Day" T-shirt, and they want to know what your favorite cheat meal is. They also want to know what my favorite vegan cheat meal is. So I'll let you go first there.
Mrs. Mir makes focaccia. It's an Italian meat bread. So she breaks up like sausages and it's marinara, and she rolls it in a handmade bread, and it makes a roll with the meat in it, and like with Parmesan cheese on it, and then she bakes it, and so it's like crispy bread with meat inside of it. So that's definitely my favorite. In fact, when she makes that, if we have friends over, she knows to specifically make me two, one for me to eat while the other people are there. So she has to make several of them, one for the guests, one for me, and one for later. Because if everybody leaves my house and I don't have any focaccia left over, I get grumpy really quick.
Gotcha. Mine's probably pizza. I just love pizza. And, we, being vegans, Jennifer and I are, and being blessed with a decently speedy metabolism, I don't have to be too careful about stuff because you just eat pretty healthy anyway. And with it all being plant-based, you're not eating the like heavy saturated fatty, all that kind of stuff. But that being said, yeah, right. But that being said, vegans can eat completely clean, or they can eat, when Frank and I go to Doomie's and order the Big Macs off the menu, those are completely 100% plant-based, but as vegan food goes, not the absolute healthiest thing you can eat. But yeah, it's probably that. Just, I really enjoy pizza. It's also the only time that I'll drink any kind of soda, like root beer or any kind of thing like that. I do like it with pizza. I'll allow myself to do that. Somebody wants to know, Frank, out of all your tattoos, what is your favorite tattoo? And do you have any that you regret? By the way, the username on this account that's asking this question is @Mrs. Mir. So I think you know what the favorite one has to be. But no, I'm kidding. It's not really her. But probably still, she might see this. So
no, actually, that is my favorite tattoo. Let's see. I got the rights for it.
Yep.
The tattoo of Mrs. Mir on my arm.
Yep.
And the reason why I love it, because I toy with her all the time, I gave it horns.
Oh, did you know? Okay. That's funny.
Yeah, I love Christian mythology, so, I've always been, I find like the whole, Lucifer, the angel of light, knowledge, free will and stuff, always interesting. So I played that into that, which, obviously I tease my wife anytime she's being grumpy. I'm like, that's why I gave you horns.
Yeah. Now, the regret is probably the tribal tramp stamp. A lot of people don't know you have that because it sits below the belt line of the trunks. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know anything. Do you are there any regrets? I don't know.
No, I had one when I first started out my career. Probably people could see I had my last name tattooed on my arm. You know, when I was 18. Just
Uh-huh.
you know, and obviously, you know, I just wanted to get something done. That's all I could afford. And then as I got older, I got that covered up. So with the dragon, so I was able to change that. That was one I thought, you know, at least it wasn't unique or anything, and it didn't, you know, it was you know, obviously not one I liked. It was something I did as a teenager, and that's why, you know, I'm not against tattoos, but I just tell people, like, you know, just, hey, think them out. As long as they mean something to you, you know, I don't think you'll ever regret it. Even if it changes meaning throughout your life, it still
Mhm.
represents a moment in your life. You know, if you know, the tattoo of my wife, I would never change. She's the mother of my children. Even if Mrs. Mir and I, you know, somehow didn't work out in the future, I was still married to her, you know, going on, you know, 17 years. Why would I get rid of that? That's something that represents a certain aspect of my life and who I am and my children. And so, you know, everything on me represents something that is meaningful to me at the time. And some still have meaning, and maybe some I've grown over and changed. But that's why I think that as long as tattoos mean something to you, I think they tell a story. It's kind of like a book cover.
If things went south, you wouldn't get rid of the Mrs. Mirror tattoo, but would you extend horns, kind of touch those up, maybe just extend them a little bit?
I've made jokes with her a couple times. I might give her a beard or something.
Hey, somebody wants to know how you managed to get a black belt in only 5 years, and if you had any tips for helping to speed up that process.
You know, well, I mean, obviously, I was already a black belt in Kempo karate. I had trained in my dad's gyms growing up since I was like 4 or 5 years old. You know, my first karate competition, I was 6. So I'd always done martial arts, wrestled in high school, and just, you know, always been enamored with. So when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I already had a brain that was formatted on how to train. That's why I tell people to train martial arts. Once you train one, I never understood why people think, well, that's all you'll ever be good at. I'm like, really, that doesn't make sense, because now you understand the programming. It's kind of like, if you can learn a second language, then why can't you learn a third? You've taught yourself how to learn multiple languages. Now it's just about fitting the pieces in. You know, attacks and offense and strategy, they're universal. Now you're just changing the pieces on the table. You know, like, okay, well, now
Mhm.
these are the rule set that I can use in this type of warfare. And so that was one aspect to it that I thought helped me out incredibly. And then I just gave it due diligence. I mean, I trained twice a day when I first started out for the first 3 years. You know, I would train, you know, in the morning before I went to work, and I trained after I got off work, and train again. And so, you know, and then another thing I did was I drilled a lot, because I realized that there was only so much energy my body would have, even being 19, 20 years old, that if I were to go hard every practice, my body was finite. You know, injuries, muscle
Mm.
soreness, fatigue would set in. You know, we are human, we're mortal, but my mind could always be training. So I would always go to the gym and always just work on something. And even if there was days that I would come in and sit down and just, I would sit in a chair and watch other guys train, and my brain would be moving and working and developing some aspect that I had questions on. So, you know, I was just motivated to do it. And so, and then the other thing was, I didn't want to be a black belt in 5 years. That wasn't really my goal. I just kept doing competitions, and because of how successful I was, it got to the point to where it looked silly. You know, I remember, I think it was a blue belt. I went to the Pan Ams, and, you know, I did the my weight class, and I did the Open, and I don't think anybody made it more than 2 minutes. I submitted everybody, like 9 guys in a row.
Mm.
And so, you know, how do you keep me as a blue belt? You know, it looks silly, you know, going from competition to competition. It's starting to look like I'm a ringer. So then I got
Hmm.
promoted that way more than anything, just because I kept doing tournaments. And, you know, I remember being a purple belt and arm barring Jeff Munson in a competition. Like, well, we got to move this guy up. You know, it's looking bad that we're, you know, throwing him in there. And, you know, it's upsetting the other competitors that, you know, the guy last month just choked everybody out all the way through to the finals. You know, he's here again as a purple belt. We got to move him up. And so, and then at that point, actually, because of jiu-jitsu competitions, I moved white, blue, and purple very fast. But then I started getting promoted because of my prowess in the MMA ring. Because of being in the UFC, I was a purple belt when I started in the UFC. But then here I'm armbarring Roberto Traven, who's a multiple-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, and I'm beating him with jiu-jitsu. And then I win the heavyweight title of the world with a jiu-jitsu move, an armbar from the guard. And so that's actually when I got my black belt, was after I submitted Tim Sylvia. They promoted me in the locker room afterwards. So.
Well, there's the answer, Ramey. By the way, thanks for the question. How do you speed up the process? Armbar Tim Sylvia or whoever the heavyweight champion is at the moment when you get the title shot, I guess. That's a good way to move it on up. Hey, here's something from my Instagram, Frank. I was checking with our social media. I talked earlier about the social distancing and how the casinos were going to reopen and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you saw this thing that I posted, but I thought this was real interesting. Hold on, let me get it here for you. Hang on, I'm still learning how to do. Oh wait, I got it. Okay. Tell me if you have seen this right here. Is that? Hang on. Okay, there we go. I got it. Have you? How can I make that bigger? Let me see. There we go. Okay, can you see what that is on your screen?
A little bit. Kind of help describe it to me. It'll help out a little bit.
Yeah, so this is from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It says that there's a Las Vegas firm that is creating safety shields for use at casino slots and tables. Now, if you see, it's a blackjack table. I'm moving the around over it, but it has these little glass partitions in between each seat. I love this. I don't know if you know this, Frank. The reason I don't gamble, in addition to the fact that I'm not great at math and I have a type A competitive personality, so I would probably be a very dedicated gambling addict, is that I hate the chit chat. Because the times that I have played it, you sit down at the blackjack table and the guy next to you, not because I asked, brings up the fact that he's in town from Cleveland. So now you got to tell him you're originally from Dallas, and then he's got to tell you he has a cousin that lives in Dallas, and I might know him. And in the meantime, I'm trying to think of what adds up to one. That stuff, that kind of conversation, I don't. It's like weather talk. It's like when people talk about oh boy, it's getting warmer out there. Yeah, it is. Spring's turning to summer, so that's what happens. Like there's no, I'd rather talk about religion or politics, like where there's two sides to the conversation. Like there's no other side to that conversation. You know what I mean? It's chit chat.
I get you. Well, you're not a small talk guy.
I don't enjoy the small talk, not generally speaking. Here's another one for you. Do you know who Diamond and Silk are? You heard of them?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I just saw that. But
okay, so they're very popular on like with the Trump crowd and like Fox News. They're a pair of sisters, and I don't know if they had any comedic background or anything like that, but they basically kind of caught on Fox. Would have them on, and they would do commentary that I guess was sort of supposed to be funny, but they were really pushing the edges of like conspiracy theories, and it's all the deep state controlling everything, and to the point that even Fox News just cut ties with them. They're like, all right, this is getting dangerous. Some of the things that they were advocating for. I went to their Twitter account just because I wanted to see if, they had any statement that they had made or anything about what had happened. And I'm going to pull up the tab here. They had this tweet, and I want to ask you your thoughts about this because, even when I don't agree with somebody, I've got no problem, like, difference of opinion or, we're going to have an exchange of ideas or whatever. But one thing I absolutely cannot handle is the bad argument, right? Just it's not that I disagree with you. It's that this is just a really bad argument that you're making here. So I'm going to pull this up. There's a tweet, and you tell me if I'm overreacting here. All right, let's see here. Okay, I've got it up now on the screen, so everybody there can see it. Now, I think I do. Hang on. Let me see here. Sorry, guys. I'm learning to navigate this thing. All right. The tweet, if you can't see it on the screen, it says this. Haters keep saying they hate Diamond and Silk, but you can't hate what you ain't never loved. Now, that tweet, Frank, has been liked 57,000 times. 56,700 people saw that, and they were like, oh, yeah, right on, thumbs up. That makes sense. One more time for you. Haters keep saying they hate Diamond and Silk, but you can't hate what you ain't never loved. Frank, I'm here to tell you, you 100% can, in fact, hate what you ain't never loved. In fact, when I saw that, I started trying to make a list of all the things that I hate. And in fact, I ain't never loved just about all of them. That's why I hate them.
Yeah, you know what? I think the problem sometimes with Twitter and our social media now is that people will throw out some words that sound kind of difficult and ambiguous. And because there are some very intelligent people in the world that will say some profound statements that on the surface are a little ambiguous, and you have to really think hard about what they're meaning and what the layers to the statement that they're making. It's deep. So the problem is that stupid people can't read into that. It's just a confusing statement that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Mm-hmm. So that way, when someone says something dumb that's equally as dumb as that statement, it comes off as profound to people.
Yes,
because they're like, oh, well, you say, you can't hate something you ever loved. It almost sounds philosophical until you actually think about it. You're like, no, that's just stupid.
That's exactly it. It's said with flair and some style, and I think, and you said it perfectly. In the day and age of Twitter and social media, and also like really limited attention span, people see something like that and they're like, ooh, deep, without even really processing it, like move on to the next thing, instead of going, no, let's break this down. Let's break the statement down. That actually is the antithesis of sensical.
Yes. Yeah. There's no way I can save that one. That one's that's a dumb statement.
By the way, Maria here is saying, am I getting this right, Maria, that Tyron Woodley is known for saying you can't hate what you never loved? Is that right? If you can confirm for me, Maria, the next time I am interfacing with Tyron Woodley, I will challenge him to explain logic of that statement. That is my promise to you. Or wait, maybe she's saying that should be a new song. I don't know. Anyway, maybe she'll clear that up here in just a second. All right, Frank, let's get ready to wrap this thing up here. We'll get this question from Stevie there. He says, Frank, Cormier says he is okay fighting for the last time because he believes his next fight's probably going to be his last. Oh, she was joking, by the way. Okay. Tyron Woodley is off the hook. Thank you for clarifying that, Maria, because I was about to falsely hold him responsible for a nonsensical statement. All right. Stevie, back to his question. DC has said that he's okay with his last fight being in an empty arena because of Corona. It ends up being the case. Would you be okay with that? So let's say it's your last fight. This is going to be the only, this is going to be it. But because for whatever reason, any and all of this is still going on, you had to do it with absolutely no one there. How would you feel about that?
That wouldn't be preferable. Obviously, I mean, when the sanctions start letting up and I'm able to fight again, if I fight in an empty arena, that's just what I have to do because that's what everybody else is going to have to do. I'll be okay with it. I mean, there even could be some advantages to it, as far as, maybe some of the energy, but, that's one of the great things about fighting is being in there, and hearing the roar of the crowd, the energy of everybody in that room, like, there's a moment in time where you are the living gladiator, as you're walking out to that cage, there's thousands of people, their eyes are on you, either screaming for your head to be knocked off or screaming for you to do it to somebody else. That's a lot of energy. And I don't know if the last time I walk in there, that's not going to be there. I mean, that's one aspect of what you're going to miss when you compete. I mean, essentially fighting somebody in an empty arena, that's like sparring in the gym, hard sparring, I mean, you're fighting, you're competing against somebody else, you could scratch that itch, but you're never going to be able to get that feeling of being that energy of fighting, of just every time you land a shot or you make a maneuver or vice versa, your opponent's doing something, you hear everybody, the oohs and the ahs and the scream and the adulation, the energy of the room. That's something I'm still addicted to. So I think that for me to say that's my last fight, that would be hard for me. DC's competed a lot and he's had an extremely successful career. He's going to go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time. Damn, I mean, maybe he's, maybe he's telling himself that just to, work externally in so that he can, cope with it. And that's just the situation he's going to have to deal with. But no, me personally, I wouldn't be okay with it. I would upset me.
Maybe Frank, Cormier just really doesn't like having to deal with comp tickets.
Sure.
Could be. He could hear that and go, "Oh man, that'd be a lot less stress during fight week."
Yeah, who do you have to give the tickets to? The free ones, yeah.
It's the greatest. Excuse to get yourself off the hook for not giving somebody tickets. It's like Doug Stanhope's great joke about how he doesn't like kids and he wants to be on a sex offenders list. Because he wants to actually sexually abuse any kids, but he thinks it would be the greatest way to avoid ever having kids brought over to his house. Like if he's having a football watching party, and Frank calls up and he's like, "Hey, listen, I got the kids. Is it all right?" Then Doug can go, "Oh, gee, I'd love to have them, but I got that court order that says I can't be within 500 feet of them." It'd be the greatest way to avoid ever having to interact with kids.
I got smart after the first couple of years of my career. You get so many free tickets and, and people want to, call you up, you're fighting and they want to get a ticket. Instead of saying no to them, I kind of put the ball back in their court. I used a little psychology on my part where, I was just honest with them, be like, all right, I had this many tickets and this is who has tickets already. So like, if I give you a ticket, I got to take a ticket from my wife, my child, my father, so who should I remove a ticket from so that you can get a ticket? And I think once people put a name with, I'm just not telling you no because I don't like you. It's just that these are finite. There are a limited amount that I have. And here's the group of people that I'm putting ahead of you. My dad's getting a ticket, you know what I mean? Like, that usually took a lot of the guilt off of my shoulders and it made people understand where I was coming from. It wasn't so much of a trick. It was just kind of like opening the light on the situation. Like, here, come on my side of the line on this and realize that if I give you a ticket, my brother's not going to be sitting there now. So should he buy a ticket or you, who I haven't spoken to for the last 6 months, gets a ticket? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. All right, let's do this, Frank. We do want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll ask a couple of favors of you. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already there. That's not going to, and we appreciate you joining us tonight, jumping in on the questions. We will definitely do more of these. Also, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/phone booth fighting. Want to head over there and look around. You can see the bonus content that Frank and I post. You can also see the multiple levels that you can support at. And if you join at any level, again, for anybody who wasn't on at the beginning of the broadcast, we are going to send you our brand new Stay Home Corona Quarantine sticker. We made a limited batch of these. These are just available for people that join the Patreon page during the Corona quarantine. So we'll all have these stickers. Remember what we all went through back in the early part of 2020. Hopefully it's only the early part of 2020. Tell them about the Amazon banner on the front of phoneboothfighting.com. And right below that, they're going to see that American Shaman banner. Go ahead and tell them why that's important.
Well, American Shaman's a CBD company that I use. I love the stuff, guys. Hey, look, 20 years of professional fighting, my body's taken a beating. I use CBD religiously. It works. It's great. American Shaman is a company that I really stand behind. If you check it out, you can see that you can get a discount by going through my website, and you'll get shipped right to your house. The stuff is phenomenal. I don't go without it. In fact, when I get low, if I start to panic. And then our Amazon banner. Hey, look, if you're going to do any of your shopping, like we're all doing most of it online right now, I just did. We went and got ahead of the curve. We bought a bunch of the face masks because we're figuring, the wife was smart. She said, hey, look, probably going to be required to go places here coming up. You're going to have to wear a face mask. So we went ahead and purchased some. I clicked on the Amazon banner. It's on Full Boot Fighting. I clicked on it, ordered it, and I know that a small percentage is going to come there to the show to help out, and didn't cost me anything extra.
That's it. All right. For Frank Mir and for everybody who joined us tonight, we sincerely appreciate you being with us. And we'll see you right back here on the next episode of Phone Booth Fighting.